Well, good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Abraham Kim. I'm probably a new face to a lot of you. I just started my new job here at the Korea Society as a new president and CEO here. So thank you very much. As you can see, our staff is putting me to work, even though no honeymoon. It's my third day on the job, and I really appreciate this honor to welcome all of you this evening. Tonight, we are starting our latest edition of the Startup Scene, Entrepreneurs of Tomorrow, and appreciate the support of Hanwha Life, who is the exclusive sponsor and supporter for the series. Just a little bit about the series. As many of you know, this Startup Scene launched in 2024 as a dedicated program series for startup entrepreneurial community spanning both the U.S. and South Korea's economic landscape, consisting of a lot of different programs, in-house programs like this, one-day forums, and even an ideation competition for college and graduate students. Looking ahead this year, we will actually have an annual forum on May 21st called Emerging Ventures U.S.-Korea Startups in Focus. So we hope all of you can make it for that program as well. But tonight, we have a really special forum called New Year, New You, powered by K Health. And we have an important discussion, as many of you know, that U.S. healthcare has really, the cost of healthcare has gone through the roof. We've had workforce shortages, aging population, and then new technologies entering into this field. AI-enabled diagnostics, the need for more precision medicine and cross-border care models. And today we have three trailblazers in this field who are doing this important work. And tonight, first of all, we have William Ban, who's the COO of Himedi, a healthcare platform bridging global patients with Korea's advanced medical and wellness ecosystem. We have Ken Nesmith, who is the group head of oncology at Lunit, a South Korean medical AI company focused on cancer diagnostics and therapeutics through AI-powered medical image analytics platforms. And then lastly, we have Sean Kim, who's a partner at IceMiller, an attorney who represents biotech, pharmaceuticals, and technology companies in commercial transaction, licensing, mergers and acquisitions, and other strategic business matters. And moderating this evening's program is, of course, our person who needs no introduction, Sojung Kim, who is our Director of Business and Economics. So we look forward to a great conversation, and we hope all of you will stay for our evening, networking opportunity this evening as well. So over to you, Sojung.
Okay, thank you, Abe. So good evening, everyone. So tonight's goal is to offer practical and market-relevant look at where real opportunities exist in today's medical and health tech landscape. So to do that, we've invited two founders. Although Ken is working with Lunit and he founded another company earlier,
Lexin's Bio.
Yes. So he has his experience of founding a biotech company, and also we have William Ban, CEO of Himedi, and also we have Sean, who are actively building, advising, and leading in the biotech across the U.S. and Korea. So we like to hear their firsthand experience. So from their experience, we hope to focus on what is actually working and where challenges remain, and how startups, investors, and institutions can collaborate across the both countries to advance global health and wellness service. So I like to start at the ground level, just looking at how it looks like in practice. So first question to William and Ken. So from your day-to-day work, what is one healthcare problem you personally spending most of the time to deal with? And importantly, why does that problem that you recognize matter, not just clinically, but commercially? So I'd like to hear from both of you first.
Okay. So Himedi, we act essentially as the
kind of like the access point for everyone in the world that wants to access kind of Korea's advanced medical infrastructure. Um, Now, if we go to the problem, why do we kind of embark on this journey? If you look at the healthcare system here in the States, as Abe kind of led with in the beginning, I think the skills of our doctors, the technology that we have here, our hospitals, they are literally the best in the world, but the system itself is quite broken, right? And if I drill down into that a little bit more, I think it's really the problem that we really obsess about is just access, right? And so, you know, when you think of health, you're healthiest when you're not sick, whereas I think the system here in the States is really good when you are sick, right? And so, but if the whole point is to not get sick in the first place, how do you get access to all the preventative screens? Or how can you actually be proactive about staying healthy, right? And just a very personal example is, I just went to the doctor's this morning and just kind of market research. I was asking, he's like, hey, can I get an endoscopy? And he was saying, you have no reason to get one, right? And he's like, so I just asked him, I'm willing to pay for it. Can I just get it? He said, no, you have to show some sort of symptoms or signs before I can prescribe it for you. Now you look at what the system and kind of culture is like in Korea. It's very just elective, purely elective, right? And so that's one level of the access point, but also again, it's access can be also defined just by just prohibitively, cost, right? If I stick with the endoscopy example, in Korea, an endoscopy is a part of a baseline, just kind of full body checkup that costs around $300, right? Whereas an endoscopy here, even with insurance, you're probably still paying thousands out of pocket, right? And so for us, it's really obsessing about how do we increase access, right? And for those that are, want to stay healthy.
So access to the high technology service.
Yeah.
And affordability. So okay.
Yeah, it's just literally, can you get the test if you want to?
Right.
And can you actually afford it?
Right. Okay, Ken?
Our aim at Lunit is to conquer cancer with AI. That's our 5-word version of our mission, which is a big one. And practically, we seek to change research and clinical practice in oncology and cancer care with AI. We're detecting cancers early, and then we're working to change research and clinical practice in treating those cancers. And it's such a neat opportunity. I spent years working on genomics and learning about how DNA is related to cancer biology and evolution. And a few years ago, when I learned about Lunit, what struck me was how fast AI was progressing. I remember seeing the AlphaGo battles years ago and watching those from San Francisco, and watching how the progress in AI image analysis, and then learning how Lunit was bringing those to analyze radiology modalities to detect cancers early, and also pathology modalities. When you do a resection or a biopsy, you can use AI to look at the tissue and let the computer zoom in and see what's going on with all of the biology that's associated with that cancer. And that stream of information is one that it's always been there. It is there, but it is not tapped in a way that it could be. It's not tapped in a way that we can use that information to understand the underlying biology of the cancer and how we can best build drugs to attack it, and then also how we can treat it with the currently available drugs. And so I've been with Lunit for about 4 years. The company's been around for about 12 years. And what we've been up to is taking those technologies and turning them into products that we can put in the hands of the community that works on cancer, putting them into products that researchers can use in their studies of cancer biology, that labs can use in the work they do on working with patients who treat cancer, that pharmaceutical companies can use as they develop drugs, and that ultimately doctors and patients can use as they work to diagnose a cancer and plan treatment along the way. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's a slow motion tidal wave of transformation. It's happening. The labs are bringing on the right scanners. They're plugging in products from us and our competitors, and the pharma companies are adopting it. It's neat to see this ecosystem shift and realize that you can use this visual information stream to change the way we think about cancer biology and care. And across the spectrum of health, cancer is one of those big areas where it's just too much of a problem. It hits all of us, I'm sure. It hits our families and friends. We know that it's part of our lives, too big a part of our lives. We need to take some steps towards fixing that, the way we've done so successfully with other big diseases over history. So got a long way to go on that front. And there's, in terms of health overall, that's one of these areas where there's so much opportunity for us to do better.
So like using the AI diagnosis and introducing that to adopt in the system. So Sean, turning to you, you are working with like various your clients in that industry. And when you look at the US healthcare system today, where startups, and like not only just Korean startups, where startups finally creating real value by, like the existing long-standing like healthcare problem, and what makes the difference compared to 5 or 10 years ago, if you compare?
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me here. Honored to be here. And also having watched Lunit from the inception to growth, it's been spectacular and love to see the growth. And also having gone to Korea every 2 years for a full body checkup with the child hospital system, I could totally sympathize and understand like it's so much easier to get a full checkup there and results. So I think there are a ton of opportunities for Korean and US startups in the US healthcare market. I think, there's healthcare is such a broad field and broad industry. There's a point of delivery of care, but there's also so much more that happens before that, right? Whether you talk about basic drug discovery, right, as in the lab, to diagnostic, startups like Lunit, right, that are changing the world and sort of taking a step further, to even companion diagnostics that are being used these days with digital therapeutics, right? And there's a medical device that it's classified as a medical device now, right? Digital therapeutics as well. So I think, from what I see from Korean startups, having gone to like CES and working with companies that are very innovative, is that they cover all gamuts of this spectrum of healthcare, right? There's AI drug discovery platforms in Korea, like Synteca Bio and other startups that are really getting to the heart of drug discovery, right? And precision medicine as well, right? Using biomarkers that are very specific to an individual. So it's no longer one drug fit all. It's really customized to be cater to individual. So there's a lot of innovation happening at the basic science research level. There's also innovation happening at digital diagnostic level, like Lunit, right? There's a lot of other companies that are trying to copycat or try to also, we're doing it, or trying to sort of within the field, not just using, visual representation, but for example, at CES, I met a bunch of Korean companies that are doing very interesting ways to diagnose people, but they don't call it diagnosis, but they look at the pigment of your skin tone and were able to detect the heartbeat and sort of your blood pressure very accurately, because they were doing comparison between visual representation with actual device. I was blown away, right? And there's also, I met a startup that was measuring your voice, right? Your intonation, and also being able to diagnose certain symptoms, right? So I think more and more as these sort of innovations grow, it will be that you'll be able to diagnose yourself almost at home more and more. And so that will help with the obviously healthcare system, in that it will help catch things earlier. I mean, we see that even with Apple iPhone, Apple Watch, right? It takes your heartbeat, right? And then moving from that to now like digital therapeutics, I mean, there's, I think obviously Korea and US have different regulations, right? All covering that. But the innovation cannot be stopped. I think it's coming. I think it's going to continue to come. And I think it's, there's now a classification under Medicare reimbursement as well for this digital therapeutics. And so I think as more and more innovations happen, it's inevitable that this product will come to the marketplace, which will obviously help drive down the cost of healthcare and just make everyone healthier, right? So I think.
So you covered a lot, but
I'm sorry.
Basically, value is like created through the breakthrough of the new technologies, and then basically it's like just not a one single company, but influx of like many new technology, and that's changing the landscape of the treatment and diagnosis. So building on this, now I like to zoom out and look across systems. So today we are talking about the complementary system between US and Korea. So could you why don't we actually talk about first Korea's medical industry. So I like to actually, three of you, I like to hear from you that where does Korea do exceptionally well in healthcare? That in the sense that in US somehow is underestimated or difficult to replicate.
It's a great question, William.
The even outside of healthcare, I think Korea is just they are a superpower because they're so good at operationalizing like systems, right? So what if it was manufacturing, they can compete with anyone in the world, right? Now, you look at it in the lens of healthcare. So Sean mentioned like the checkup center. The in the same building, you can get roughly up to 80 different tests done all at the same time in a matter of about 2 to 3 hours. This includes lab work. This includes imaging, so like X-rays, ultrasound, CT scans, MRIs, PET scans,
Colonoscopy. As well.
colonoscopy,
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
endoscopy,
Yeah.
and for those that have never done it, it's extremely hard to fathom like how that can happen, because let's say that collection of 80 kind of tests here in the States will easily cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and you're probably looking at 6 to 10 different appointments spread out across 6 months, right? And so Korea has kind of come up with a system where it's a full just entire vertical system like integration where we can put all those different labs, diagnostics, specialties in a physical, the same location, and basically run through all those tests in about 2 hours, which is insane. And
Yeah,
so
for Ken, we should recommend it.
yeah.
He has never done it in Korea.
Never done
so-
it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where like right now, like we all have smartphones, and
Right.
Yep.
my first phone was Motorola Blade, right, like flip phones, and imagine trying to explain to someone that has never seen a smartphone what you can do and how hooked and vital it is kind of to our daily lives right now. It's just it's very hard to it's one of the things where once you experience it, it's kind of mind-blowing. And but yeah,
So like, in a way, like availability and affordability of the efficient, like
Yeah.
preventive measures.
yeah, and
That
and,
system
and the
is kinda hard
affordability
to
is
duplicate.
a key part,
Right,
right?
right.
I think
Yeah.
and just because it's affordable, it doesn't mean it's a cheap or a low quality service, right? It's Korean doctors and kind of like the clinical kind of infrastructure there is
It's a world
there's a
class
reason
level,
why
right,
they're attracting everybody from the world.
right.
They're extremely highly qualified, and there's a difference in culture of Americans versus, or in Korea, this full body checkup is just their version of an annual physical, so they don't think much about it, right? And so it's almost, and the Korean government actually looks at so we are kind of classified as like a medical tourism company, and so they look at medical services that are for foreigners as an export, right? So they kind of categorize that as an export service, and so it's very interesting where I think health in general is still one of those industries where highly complicated. I mean, the human body itself is extremely complicated. We still don't know more than what we actually do know, right? But the health and how we take care of our health is really starting to, I think, get onto that wave of globalization, right? It's starting to transcend borders. It's very common nowadays to if someone is sick, cancer patients. We actually get a lot of cancer patients that choose to go to Korea to receive treatment. Or, my sister, she did her IVF down in Mexico, right? And so it's looking at, it's, again, like I was saying previously, it's access, right? A big part of access also is this affordable? IVF treatments here extremely expensive. But yeah.
Okay. So Ken, because you're working for Lunit, and you just recently made a trip to Korea. So what is your take, from the diagnosis point of view, what would be the Korean strength, but somehow it's hard to replicate in the States? If you like to
Good question.
go over.
I love going to Korea. It's fantastic. I need to do the health. I've been told many times, and I will be doing the full health experience. In Lunit space, in our space, one thing that I didn't know about Korea until I started working with Lunit is the nature of the centralization of cancer treatment. There's like 5 hospitals that do like almost all of the cancer care in the country. And they're highly systematized, which is great. And that has translated to Korea for like some long number of years, I don't know, the last 10 years or something, leading the world in clinical trial enrollments in cancer therapeutics. And that's interesting to me, partly because like that's one of the hardest gates in us, the global us doing better at fixing cancer, is getting patients into clinical trials effectively to try new therapies across all these different cancers that we're all working to beat, with lots of new good ideas about how to beat them. But getting patients into trials is a hard space. And there's loads of startups working on optimizing that in the US and around the world and working on it. Korea, with the centralized cancer care, turns out to be highly effective and efficient at enrolling patients into clinical trials. And so it turns out they become one of the world-leading drivers of enrollment into the clinical trials that all of these global pharma companies are doing, which I found really interesting. Yeah.
So it's like centralize the system, and also like the intensiveness of the data, clinical data, I would say that's something that gives the edge to the Korean medical, especially cancer treatment.
It does. It
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
does. And I have a real-time question. So I'm very curious from William. I love the system, and I'm so excited to try it. But why can't we do it here? Can we do it? I know the hospitals
That's a
can't
good
do
question,
it, but could
actually,
you
right.
set it up and so we could go have that experience?
I myself asked that question after the very first time I did a checkup in Korea. This is about 10 years ago. And immediately I was like, I need to start this here. And I went around and talked to all of my doctor friends. Why can't we do this? Very simply put, it's regulations is very, very different. And so there's a reason why in the States, there's 2 main kind of lab, I don't know what you call it, analyzers, right? Like Quest Diagnostic and LabCorp. Because if you're a clinic and if you wanted to, you can draw blood, but if you wanted to analyze it, you have to have different types of licensing and accreditation, right? And so all of that just keeps piling on more costs. I think labor costs here, there's a big advantage in Korea as well. And so for all of those different reasons, you could technically do it here. It would just probably cost you an exorbitant amount. Not just to set it up, but I mean, because it's so expensive just to set up, you would have to pass, the price for any of the consumers. It just doesn't make business sense, right? At this point.
So I guess, Sean, you can add more.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, just to quickly add on that, like a personal experience as well. My son, we're in Korea during COVID because everything was shut down here, which is there for a couple of months, and he was 2 back then, so he fell, had a cut, and we took him to a university hospital, and he had a full X-ray done, anesthesia, stitching. He's fine now; you could barely see it, but the whole time I'm thinking, I don't have insurance here. What's going to happen? And look, we got all this care within a couple hours. Everything was efficient. And when it came time to pay, they found out we don't have insurance. They said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you have to pay out of pocket." I was thinking chapter 11, chapter 7, whatever. There. But it was $300, $350 actually, if you convert the Korean one, which is astounding. And then a month later, in US, when we got back here, he had a scratch in his hand. He was playing with something with glass drop. Went to NYU, and now we have insurance here. All they did was literally put like a bandage over it, right? No X-ray, nothing, right? And I saw the invoice later. It was like 5 or 6,000. It was something crazy. But the insurance covered it, most of it. But I still had to pay out of pocket like a few hundred. But I think this panel is obviously not to discuss the difference in the healthcare system, right? I still believe in that I do believe, as William said, the U.S. has the best surgeons. We have the best basic science research. We do have the best specialists. Because Korea actually has a really shortage right now of surgeons and specialists. They do have issues too, right? Having said that, we could get into argument about which system is better, all that stuff, right? But I think where I see the bridging of the gap is the innovation, right? Whether it's AI diagnostics, right, or AI precision medicine, that's how you bridge the gap. And I think as more and more of this innovation come to forefront, we're going to see that gap being, doing a little more as well, which is better for everyone, right? So, yeah.
So, I mean, just going over one more time. So I can see that one of the driving factor for the lack of the access to all this service could be labor charge, simply. But other than the labor charge, do you see, as a lawyer, do you see some institutional factors that make a U.S. system as a U.S. system?
I mean, well, without getting to the whole healthcare policy and the HMOs and I think the socialized care versus I mean, I think in Korea, because it is a national sort of healthcare system, right? Single payer, and I think there's a negotiated rate. That's why even if you're out of pocket payer, it's not like you get hit with something outrageous, right? I think U.S. we have government subsidized insurance plan, but that's somehow covered by the private insurance, right? So it's sort of there's no one really looking out for price check in some ways, right? So the middleman is encouraged, incentivized to charge more if they can, and the ones who suffer in really are the patient, and even doctors, because doctors also want to fight for you to get insurance coverage for certain procedures, right? So we hear all these stories about doctors fighting with insurance, right, etc. So I think and as someone who pays insurance for the family, it's astounding how much we pay in insurance, right, in the United States, right? So again, without getting into policy, I don't know what the improvement is, but I think that's above my pay grade, but so to say. But I think where all of us respectively are doing our part and contributing and working with innovators is to help bridge the gap, right?
So this is the sheer size of the U.S. market. It's
size, structure, other things.
So now, so this is a nice segue. So now let's look in the other direction. But all these Korean, not all this, many of the Korean bio companies, they wanted to actually come to U.S. So what is the strength of the U.S. healthcare ecosystem, or in terms of the market sense? Anyone wants to?
I'll take a very quick shot. I think U.S. just has much bigger capital market, much bigger population size, and also the exit opportunity and liquidity for whether it's a big multinational pharma or others. It's just much larger than Korea, right? So naturally, I think Korean companies, biotech especially, would want to come here, and they do try to come here. The mistakes I see being made sometimes, not all the time, is that they're very eager to set up a U.S. subsidiary or do a flip and become a U.S. company without having a provable, sort of market trend or a product, right? It's not like you just set up a company here and all of a sudden you create millions of dollars, right? And I think it comes down really to the data. If you're a therapeutic company, it's really the data, right? How, do you have a GLP tox? Are you phase 1? What stage are you, right? Because, despite the geopolitical tension, China's still doing the most number of mega deals coming out of China on ADCs, bispecific antibodies, all these new modalities that are being, spun out. And that's because they're able to move fast, and data is, recognized no border, right? At the end of the day, right? If you have a really good product and data. So I think, where Korean companies do well, exceptionally well in Korea is as William said, it's a clinical trial, right? The speed at which they could do it and the access to the market there to and they have a very high specificity and skill set when it comes to basic science research and innovation. I think coming to the U.S., they just need to focus on, what those big pharma are looking for, or other partners are looking for. And what I see an issue sometimes is that it's just have to, once you meet them, just keep following up, keep sending update data, and not give up, right? If you actually have a product that you believe in. So
Well said. The depth of the capital markets is a plus. The extent to which the country spends on healthcare creates a huge amount of opportunity to make it better. And the U.S. Values and pays for innovation in different flavors and forms that can be hard in other markets. So in a short answer, I think those are kind of core attractors.
Okay. So, we just discussed about how distinctively different but at the same time complementary strengths for the both countries to have in terms of healthcare innovation. But just knowing the both sides of strength is not the entire picture. And the harder question is, when startups work cross-border, there is systemic issues and cultural difference and incentives. They are always don't line up together. So we just wanted to move now to how cross-border collaboration actually work. So William and Ken, because you guys operate in both countries, where Korea and US, the cultural expectations, and also we mentioned about the payment systems differ significantly. But from your personal experience, like what was one operational or structural challenge you personally underestimated, and how did you overcome?
I think it ultimately comes down to, I would just say, awareness or education levels. And that is primarily rooted in cultural differences, right? And so, for example, in the US, I used to have an Apple Watch and a Whoop, right? Like trying to measure everything I can, right? Like all the biohacking stuff, taking all sorts of different supplements. We are very much interested in the concept of biohacking. But what's the root of that is because we're all trying to just doing whatever we can to try and be healthier, right? But health also just starts with more knowledge. And that's, again, when kind of going back to the first question is, it's so hard to get access to knowledge, and the knowledge is coming from, the exam reports. And so it's, as I was mentioning earlier, it's the education and almost even deeply rooted in like kind of cultural, which leads to kind of consumer behavior, is trying to convey that there is this service, a full body checkup, right? That you can do in 2 to 3 hours, and people think it's a scam, right? If you're coming at it from no knowledge, because there's no way it can work here, right? And so, so a big part of what Himedi is doing is we're trying to. There's a lot of education that we need to do, right? But luckily, I think Korea, just look at it as a whole, as a country. There's so many aspects of Korean food, K-pop, entertainment. I mean, gosh, I don't know how many times I watched K-pop Demon Hunters, right? I have 2 daughters, and so Korea is definitely having a moment, I think, on the global stage, and that trend is only continuing to grow. We see it in terms of inbound travelers that are coming in, and so with that, it's the kind of the unknown secrets of Korea that starts to become more and more kind of evangelized, right? Like by people that have started to travel there.
For the K-pop demon hunters too, you have to suggest one episode they're getting a body checkup.
Yeah.
They should. How about you, Ken? Like anything that you sort of didn't really expect, like either in Korea or in US?
Yeah, it's been some time. I joined Lunit. I had a lot of common friends and common professional connects with the leaders and the founders. And over time, it's kind of some perhaps predictable and yet still things that are there. Time zones are a thing. It's a challenge. Just simple, it's real. The limitation of overlap in time zones. There is language. I'm not a language guy, not fluent in other languages other than English. I do my best. I'm learning some things, but not there. I'm very fortunate that many of my colleagues at Lunit, some are fully fluent in English, many are pretty dang good at it, vastly better than I am in speaking Korean. But language is a barrier. It comes with working internally and with working externally with partners. The cultures are different, but not. It's kind of fine. We would joke. Folks would ask about the cultural differences between the U.S. and Korea, and we would say, "Have you heard of BTS? Yes. Have you heard of Squid Game? Yes." It's more BTS than Squid Game. It's kind of, but that only points to the fact that there are more and more cultural anchors and flagpoles like BTS, like Squid Game, like K-pop, Demon Hunters. Seen it several times. Chat with my daughter as well. Very, very good movie. The popularity of Korean culture is accelerating. Anyway, the challenges of working together across borders, it's hard. It's full stop. To work around the world. Some of it mirrors the same challenges that any company faces in working remotely. There are always challenges in having an office in, pick your things, New York and California, New York and Florida. There are things that come with collaborating when you're not in the same space. And there are trade-offs to it. There's benefits and also costs. Those are just as real when you're working on the other side of the world with a similar set of benefits and costs about communications, about time zone overlaps, about handing work off, about the bandwidth of communications when you're working on different types of problems that require intense creativity and brainstorming and thinking, harder when you're farther apart. Things that are more easily handed off and tactical, easier to do so.
Sean, I have a specific question. Among your Korean clients, what factor do they usually underestimate when they launching in the United States and they get a lesson after that?
Yeah,
what would it be? Just if you choose one.
Sure. I think I touched on it earlier. I think, just coming to US doesn't, I think they read a lot of TechCrunch articles and all these other massive raises. And, obviously Korea, I think in Korea, Series A funding size is different from what Series A size in the United States, right? And I think, just having a unrealistic expectation about being able to raise funds here or being able to find partners here, it takes a lot of considered effort. I mean, some of the best ways that bigger Korean companies have expanded into the United States has been actually by acquiring existing really successful run businesses with executives and just letting them do their thing, right? Instead of having a top-down approach from Korea, trying to sort of manage that process, right? So I think, just have a realistic expectation. If you don't have a market defining or sort of a unique product or sell in Korea, it doesn't change just because you come to US, right? So I think, especially from the pharma perspective and services perspective, so that's just something to keep in mind, I think, yeah.
So actually, we have roughly less than 10 minutes to finish this. Yeah, so I'm going to just speed up with two actually questions. Yeah. So we mentioned about the advances of AI diagnosis and precision medicine. So it seems like all these fancy technology that bring everyone's much healthier is there. But quite honestly, we don't really see it that available in our lives. So what are the key barriers slowing down these technologies in real world healthcare settings?
Go ahead. Well, I mean, from the legal side, I think there's obviously, FDA approvals you have to get for digital therapeutics or companion diagnostic. I think, because we have regulatory scheme in place to protect us, right? That's why we have a rigorous scientific standards, right? I think some of that when it comes to digital innovation may be something that's worth looking at, because do we really need to go through as much rigor when it comes to that versus a pharmaceutical drug? I think, to me, that's really working with the regulators and having a sort of a dialogue about what it takes to bring product to the market that's helpful to people. And I think this current administration has actually been very good proponent of compassionate use when it comes to new therapeutics. So, I'm optimistic about hopefully the trend towards a lot of innovation to be sped up to marketplace. Yeah.
I would say from kind of my angle is, because the business that we're in is not high tech, right? It's literally in the most simplest form, it's can we create a trusted platform, right?
Right.
Letting people know that there are great services in Korea that are quite affordable. There's a pent-up demand here in the States. And not just in the States, but all across the world. So I mean, US is kind of number one market for us, but then it's Canada is next, UK, Australia, Singapore, right? And so it's a global just phenomenon that everybody, especially with the younger generations now, they want to be healthy. It's cool to be healthy. When we were young, we were doing everything that was not healthy to be cool, right? And drinking and smoking and it's like that. But now it's cool to be sober, and so it's a very it's a generational change. I didn't care about my health until I started to turn like 40, right? But if you just kind of look at our customer base, it's like there's young 20-year-olds that are doing these full body checkups, and it blows my mind. I'm like, I could not think about thinking of my own health. I thought I was invincible at that age. And so it's kind of, you mentioned like, what's like the biggest friction? I don't think we lack amazing call it tools in and of itself is not useful, right? Or data in and of itself is not useful. It's how does the diagnostics, how does the data then translate to our just normal lives? And that kind of synthesis or translation of that is, there's a lot of companies that are trying to tackle that, right? Make sense of different biomarkers. You're mentioning like some of the CES ones where can we correlate color of the skin to completely different like heartbeat, which is to me is like that's insane, right? And so, but with AI constantly evolving literally just by every week, right? And so I think it's the successful companies, startups are the ones where, we, because of a diagnostic or because of a certain exam, you get this mountain of raw data, but then how does that then translate back to, how is that going to impact your daily lives?
Okay.
Yeah, one thing that hits me is that in the moment it can feel like where's the change, and yet what's kind of fun is if you zoom back over just a few years, we've had some progress. There was some neat analysis just out over the last few days about looking at the expected overall survival times in different types of cancers, looking at across 15 cancers or something, like now versus, I forget, 10 years ago, some short period. And we're making some progress. It's really moving. And there's different groups. There's some cancers where it's gotten a lot better in breast and lung and melanoma. There's some where we're kind of in the middle and we still have some progress. And then there's some that are still super hard and we got to crack them. But there's meaningful change there, quite meaningful change in what can happen in the course of treating and managing a cancer. A few chapters ago, I worked for a company called Noom in New York, where we used the world's most powerful drug, the smartphone, to try to fix diet and exercise to help people lose weight and stay healthy. Loved it. Super great idea. Worked really well. A lot of people got a lot healthier. And yet what's changed since then is we have these magical GLP-1 drugs now, extraordinary in their impact. And the way they change health for millions, I stopped counting, billions, but a lot of people at this point. So it's pretty cool to see progress like that. And yet we still have our things. I'm learning all about the world of tendon repair right now. I tore my Achilles tendon. This is not a ski boot, it's a thing. So I tore my Achilles tendon playing a game of squash, and I've been learning that there's not a ton we do. We kind of stitch it together and let it go from there. But should we be in a place where we can, engineer our joints and tendons and so forth so that we can not have problems like this? Feels like we should, right? We've got these advances in protein engineering and tissue engineering, and yet there's some ways to go there. So the opportunity to fix our health, and I don't mean to pick this, but sure, pick Alzheimer's, pick the areas of neurodegeneration, pick the areas of cardiovascular health impact and health improvement and prevention. There's a lot of opportunity to do some things that take us further big steps in the right direction. But it is neat to see when you look back. We're making some strides. Things are getting better in some areas, so it's nice to see that. Anyway, for our very specific stuff in Lunit, one thing we need to see is more digitization, more availability of scanners, so that we can start to access the visual information. And that ecosystem is shifting. Folks are buying the scanners, starting to use them, starting to scan the slides, and that's thanks to the last 10 years. These are huge image files, but the computers are faster, the internet wires are faster. It's coming to a place where you could do that now in a place that was impractical or a pain even eight years ago, I would say.
Okay, thank you. So the last question, but it's I just expect 30 seconds each of you.
Rapid fire.
Yeah, rapid fire here. So, I mean, you guys been in this industry for a long time, and you have your own observation involvement. But for the budding entrepreneurs, what would be the next emerging niche or opportunity especially in the cross-border healthcare setup, you are very excited about, and you think that it's going to be definitely that area that we need to pay attention to?
To give 30 seconds, I would there's so many areas, and not to quote channel Paul Graham or Y Combinator, but find your own pain and find something that you know well is my personal belief. It's a good thing to find something that you're deeply familiar with. You can see a way that it should be better, and attack that thing, because that just gives you the best chance at changing the world into the way that you believe it should work.
I would say it's kind of a continuation of what I previously said, which is we are starting to get access to more and more data, right? There's tons of wearables, a lot of different tests. It's just how do we then translate that? And I think AI is kind of this really powerful kind of technological tool that where it allows, very amazing cases. Again, I'm still blown away with the skin color to the heartbeat. How does that relate at all? But with enough data and kind of compute, you can start finding the right correlations. And, it's no secret, I think AI is here to stay. And it's just really a matter of now with this immense, almost supercomputer, very powerful thing that can execute tasks and analyze things much faster and at a much larger scale than humans used to be able to. It's how do you filter through all the noise to kind of find the real answers? And when you find those answers, there's going to be businesses and real problems and solutions around it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think it's going to be taking, existing med devices or new devices, right, and new sort of input and being able to analyze it and being able to provide value. Right? At the end of the day, it's all about providing value. So whatever modalities or things that you find to be niche or have competitive edge over what's out there, finding that how does that provide value to patients and consumers, and just going after it. So.
Thank you. So now I'm going to turn the microphone to the audience. So when you have, please raise your hand if you have a question, and we would appreciate if you could introduce yourself before shout out the question. Don't be shy.
So many. But,
oh, okay.
So If the U.S. has capital and Korea has the clinical trials, what is preventing the American dollars, like in pharmaceutical companies or NIH money or whatever, from going to Korea to fund the clinical trials? And if so, do the pharmas, are they allowed to use it to get FDA approval? Like, how is this working? Is it possible, in which case you could get the US dollars for these Korean clinical trials?
Right. It is working. It's happening. They're doing it, and it's in fact that's the stats I mentioned about Korea clinical trial enrollment. Those are U.S. global pharmas, U.S. pharmas driving most of those trials, and that is their Korea is one of their. It's been the world leader in driving cancer trial enrollment for the last many years. I forget what, but that's happening. That's happening. I can't say I know the 7 layers deeper in that. I know those top level points that is happening, but that remains a point of interest for me to zoom in on that even further.
Okay.
Anyway, it's happening is my short reaction to your question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't know whether that was happening or not. Lunit, what products does the company make? Is it more chemotherapy, target therapy, immunotherapy, or more symptom management?
We do not make the drugs. We don't make
Okay.
the drugs. We do make the tools to analyze the imaging data, both the pathology slides or the x-rays or the CT images, and then help understand what's going on with the cancer, and then pick the best therapy against it. And those therapies span all of the things that you just said.
Okay. Well, I don't want to hog the mic.
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm a radiology resident, so I just had a question about the medical imaging stuff. Just curious if you could share like some insight about your strategy at Lunit with AI. So like, I think at least at the hospital I work with, we have different vendors and they focus on one specific thing. I know you guys do like chest X-rays, mammos, that kind of stuff, and it's like a specific indication. I'm curious, like, are you guys looking into like multimodal learning? Like, are you guys starting to look at foundational models? Like, what does the kind of future hold in terms of the trends here? Or is it like, you know, with the big booms of like LLMs now, like, is that a big focus for you guys? Just kind of curious if you could share a little insight on the strategy there.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Generally, I'd say 2 things. One, I focus less on our early detection work than our post-diagnosis biomarker formation work. Within our early detection work and our analysis of what you just said, mammograms, chest X-rays, DBTs, and so forth, there continues to be neat progress in just the underlying AI science of image analysis here. And so Lunit's been a good pioneer there. We continue to publish at the leading AI conferences some underlying methodologies for AI image analysis of different modalities, as you outlined. I think there is this neat point, and this is a familiar one perhaps, but you recall Geoffrey Hinton, how many years ago now? 10 years ago, talking about the onslaught of AI coming for radiology. And of course, there's more radiologists now than there were 10 years ago, and there's more work to be done as well. I think there's a fascinating and probably kind of hard to predict evolution of the ability to use these tools and have them enable and aid clinical practice that's very much still in flight. And frankly, I'd be curious, are you using AI day to day in workflow to triage or read or do impressions? Or
I can just spill the secrets. Like we use like Viz AI and AI Doc.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Like things like kidneys, they screen for all home bone fracture. So like every scan gets through that. So they tend to be a little more sensitive than specific. You know, obviously you want that, but yeah, it's kind of fragmented, obviously, because it's like we have multiple vendors. And it's like for only specific things. Yeah, and it's a very interesting thing. I feel like there's like it's tough because it's like, you know, you still have to read the scan despite whatever it says, and there's no actual add-on payment besides like I don't know if you're familiar with like HeartFlow. They're like the only ones that really have like a CPT code with it, and otherwise there's like the new technology add-on payments that sometimes get added on. But yeah, so that's kind of what we got right now.
And so are you feeling some Wegener fragmentation? You've got some AI to read some things, others catch more. Maybe you need a broader read that covers more things in one analysis. Yeah?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I think I have the impression that I can't say too much about Lunit's future, but you see generally, I'd see models that cover and identify more things so that you don't need to switch between different products to have support for identifying different
Yeah, yeah. So I think it just depends on the scan, whether it's like an X-ray or like a CT head, CT angio. Then it'll like load just the Viz AI model. But if it's like the X-ray or something, it'll load the AI doc or like a CT angio. But yeah, it's like a specific module kind of thing. But,
For modality. Got it.
Okay, so if anyone, the lady over there.
Hi, my name's Catherine. I had a question, I guess, about portability of information. Like, I think one of the previous questions was about the clinical trials and the back and forth of information there. But I was wondering if there's any standout learnings maybe from US to Korea and vice versa about transferring information, whether for clinical trials for diagnostics or in the case for Himedi, helping patients to transfer their information back and forth, and what all three of your thoughts might be about things that make it easy or difficult, and how that can apply to making it more global than just these two countries. Thank you.
Maybe I'll start because it's the portability of kind of the medical records is literally something that we're tackling right now. And this was it. When you start to think about now you're moving around electronic medical records, especially here in the States, you start to then think extremely hard about like regulatory kind of risks, right? And I was really glad that Sean's here, and so, but it's beyond just, I think, kind of the regulatory risk. There's the technology behind it is relatively simple, right? Because they're digital files that you can move around. The complexity comes in more so from a kind of like an operational standpoint of, there's been a ton of startups that are tackling EMR, electronic medical records, here in the States, because, I think Kaiser's in California versus Kaiser's here in New York, they're on different systems, right? Same hospital, but different systems. And so highly, highly fragmented. So now it's how can you seamlessly integrate into an extremely fragmented kind of infrastructure in the States. And so one of the kind of it's kind of like the most viable solution right now is literally just putting the files on CDs, right? And it's so strange because I remember at first I was like, why are we giving CDs? No one's using CDs anymore. Hospitals are, clinics are, right? Like my MacBook doesn't have a CD drive anymore, right? But, and so, sometimes for a complex problem, it's a very simple solution or a very outdated solution still kind of works. But obviously it's, we want to do it in a way where it's very consumer friendly, right? It lives on your phone, right? Like, but how does that on your phone then translate over into the clinic's system or the hospital system or the doctor's system? So that's where it's more of like an operational, I would say, challenge. Not a big and regulatory challenge, but also but technology wise, like we have all the tech to do it.
You want to add?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything Ben said. I mean, EMR is so fragmented. The interoperability issue is real, right? I know this because before law school, my friends and I started a digital hospital. We tried to make a EMR and realized, okay, there's no way we could do this. And I went to law school, and my other friends went to work at Google, and we're like, all right, never speak of it again, And it's still an issue, right? So I mean, there's some great, and I think that's as Ben said, EMR fragmentation is a new issue. But I think, same thing from Korea when I did my full body healthcare checkup, they gave me a CD and they sent me a PDF. I just took it to a doctor here. I was like, hey, they still need to look at this one thing, put the CD in, and they look at it, it's okay, whatever. But I think when you're looking at a business model, right, that works on transferring this data back and forth. Obviously, in U.S., HIPAA is a major issue, right? And there's other regulations created to be aware of, and there's also export control when it comes to certain data or certain information. So, all that to say, I'm not the right lawyer to advise on that because I'm a deal lawyer, but I have much smarter colleagues that do this every day, and I think I always go to them with these type of issues and questions. But it's good to get advice on that as you sort of, if your business model is working on that type of model. Of transferring data back and forth, I think it's always wise to get some advice on that. Yeah.
So while we're waiting for one more person to pluck up your heart to ask a question, there's one question from our virtual participants. So the question is, does the value that the startups are creating will eventually improve the healthcare affordability within the United States? Or it's going to be, the service is going to be available, but the price, the affordability is still going to be up there. What do you think?
I think definitely yes, because you see the value that Ben's creating with Himedi, right? I mean, that's a value because even though the point of care may not be happening or diagnostic may not be happening in the U.S., they're facilitating, right, an access to healthcare. I think yes, also include Lunit because they're now in many devices, partnership with GE and others, where you're able to actually get that diagnosis done in the United States, right? And I think other Korean companies I mentioned, they're working on novel therapeutics, different modalities, platform technologies. I just did a platform licensing deal from a Korean company called Prager Therapeutics to J&J. It was the first time J&J has ever done an equity investment into a Korean company last year. They took an option and now they licensed out the platform. And so I think there's innovation that's happening in Korea, in Asia, that's being brought over, whether through investment, licensing, or through this type of bridging between the two countries and cultures, that I think will continue to drive overall healthcare spread broad, cost down and quality up, hopefully.
High level, I think it's healthcare's costs start to skyrocket as soon as you start getting sick, right? And it's the cost of care that is kind of the exorbitant kind of factor. And so it's really if for cancer, the key thing is you have to catch it early, right? Like that's the most important thing is try and catch it as early as possible. Kind of the world that Himedi is in is how do we keep you, as healthy or just informed? And a key part of that is if, you can feel healthy, but there might be something that is off, right? Like, can we catch things early? Because the cost of treating something when you catch it very early on versus when it's, much later in kind of the process, it's an order of a magnitude different. And so no, I think high level wise, definitely cost of care should go down as we get a higher, mix of people that, are healthier for longer periods of time.
Okay, so the last question. Anyone?
Is any part of what the full body scan you could do, can it be done remotely? For example, whether it's just blood samples, obviously you can't do a whole CT scan here, you have to go to Korea. What can be done remotely? And if so, is it cost feasible? And then if so, have you looked into insurance companies covering it?
I don't think you can send blood samples to Korea. This Crest Diagnostics now, there's probably do it here.
Yeah.
Cheaper than that, I would imagine. Yeah.
I think the short answer is no. Not from a U.S.-Korea standpoint, right, or a cross-border standpoint. What I do know, though, is there's some amazing startups here. You mentioned blood, right? So like Function Health, for example, very large startup that is leveraging networks like Quest Diagnostic and LabCorp to basically make sense more of your blood test, right? What are they doing? They're putting a consumerized kind of layer on top, so you can actually make sense of, what do all these different levers mean, and kind of the results. In the States, Pernuvo, I think, is another good example where a very successful startup brought the concept of kind of whole body MRI scans here in the States. It's just, so you can do a lot of the full body checkup. You can do it here. It'll just be extremely expensive, right? So Pernuvo, for their whole body MRI, for example, it costs roughly $4,000, $4,500 for the scan. The exact same thing in Korea is going to cost you around 2,000, right? So it's an order of a magnitude cheaper. Why? Again, what's Korea's kind of, I think, superpower or unfair advantage? They're just so highly efficient when a process is made, right? It's like they can operationalize it really down to the bone, right? So it just drives the cost down. And so it's not saying, I'm sure we can do things here. I think it just comes down to affordability is the major issue, I think, in the States.
Right, which is why can we do anything here and send samples to, like whether it's biopsies or blood work or anything to be done in Korea to make it affordable for people here, and then Korea analyzes it, gets the CDs. I don't know if insurance will cover it, but you could at least make the case that, look, I already have a tumor here. I need to do a U.S. endoscopy by a U.S. doctor, but they're more likely to cover it if that was the case, as opposed to I just want a full body scan for no apparent reason. So that's what I'm asking you. Like, how can we make it so that it'll work that way?
I'm not a doctor, so I don't take this with a grain of salt. I think the real cost to any procedures is not necessarily is the actual administering of the procedure itself. Sending blood samples overseas, that's going to be super expensive, right? And or you might lose a ton of it probably is no longer viable, right? Especially from here all the way to Korea. And so, in all honesty, probably the most cost-effective way is just to fly there and get it done there. If I just take the whole body MRI scan, for example, right, like the cost difference from 4,500 versus 2,000, that easily cover your flight, right? And so, very interesting question. I haven't thought about it that way, right? But something for me to think about. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Actually, just the very last question. Oh, could you use the microphone, please?
Hi, my name is Lizette. That was more along the line of my question, and I'm glad that she kind of asked that. Well, I've been through cancer twice, and I have also been to Korea. I have a lot of friends in Korea, and it's funny because you mentioned scams. We come from the queen of potential scam, New York City, right? We get these calls all the time. So, of course, we're going to think like, you go to Korea and you mention like having all these tests within 2 hours, and you're like, yeah, right? So is this possible? You just mentioned it. It's possible. And yes, it would be a lot cheaper if you mentioned you paid $250 for your child's, test and everything to be done. It would be a lot cheaper to pay $1,200 for the flight to be covered, go get the test done, and just come back, right? So now the question I think I would be asking is, what would we ask in order to research what facility would be the best one for us to go to once in Korea? That would be the question, because facilities, there are tons. Korea is not only, upcoming in healthcare. They're upcoming in skincare, in physical therapy, in plastic surgery, in tons of things. So where do we go? What are we searching when we go out there? Or if we're looking to just go or find, Anua or which company, what are the questions we ask to look for these facilities? That would be the main thing.
That's why we need a concierge service.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm trying to not go too hard into kind of pitch mode. Like, your question is basically the pain point that why we started Himedi. I think the questions differ depending on call it the treatment types. If it is let's call it more general disease, kind of like Korea has essentially, you were mentioning if it's cancer, there's 5 hospitals in Korea, right? Like, so kind of dependent on call it the general disease category, the top university hospitals, Seoul National University, Severance, which is part of Yonsei.
Awesome.
Yeah, Asan, Cha Hospital, Samsung. I just read it off, basically like the top 5, and these are not just the top 5 in Korea, but they're world renowned, right? Like they rank in the, I think, top 50 in the world. You can do a very good job there, but even on top of that, so again, if I don't want to get to promotion, but this is what Himedi does. Like we have employees inside there. We've been working with them for over 10 years. So we understand there's no way an average consumer can navigate all of that on their own, right? Now you flip over to, let's say, like more elective procedures. So you mentioned skin clinics or dermatology clinics. I think you walk down, 2 blocks in Gangnam, and you'll hit maybe 300 different clinics, right? How do you know which ones are good, which ones are bad? Almost like AI, they're popping up every week, right? It's constantly changing. And so a big part of what we do at Himedi is we personally vet all of our clinics. I personally guinea pigged a lot, right? And my wife gets pretty jealous because she's always like, "You're getting so much stuff done on your face." Like, but this is just like I have to do it, right?
Okay.
And so it's I think generally speaking, the quality level is not too big of a concern. There are so many high quality clinics, highly skilled doctors. It then comes down to what is the customer experience going to be like, right? And we are particularly looking at it from a lens of foreigners. So language barrier is a huge issue, right? Like, do they have either English-speaking staff members, or if not, we also arrange interpreters, right? So we get rid of that, right? But it's also, there's, for every good clinic, there's a bad clinic, right? With kind of more dodgy business practices. A very good question, one of the first things we do when we're just vetting a clinic is, are your prices transparent, right? Because pricing strategy is typically, if they don't list them on the sites, is they are likely charging locals one price and foreigners a different price, right? So it all just comes down to transparency. But yeah, I don't think there is a silver bullet like here. I don't want to end it with
I think
that's a big reason why.
This kingdom's so open now. Like there's so many people going into Korea. I think there's so many review sites, Reddit. I think obviously you should use Himedi to get guidance. But Yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
You said it.
Okay, so we are timed up. Actually, we kind of went over, but thank you so much for sharing your insights, and thank you, audience, for all these thoughtful, thought-provoking questions. So we have some food ready. Sarah, you want to? Okay, so so this startup scene, one of the mission is providing the platform for networking. So please stay for another 20 to 25 minutes. And if you still have some questions, you can ask the speakers. Yes, so enjoy tonight. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Stay here.